Welcome back to Hardball. Back with us right now, Michelle Bernard. She's president of Independent Women's Forum. And Mark Green, of course, is with Air America Radio. Mark, you're Mr. New Yorker, Mr. Knickerbocker, a political legend up there. New York City's now on something called a ramped up alert right now compared to the rest of the country, which is still at yellow. New York City, does it feel a special pattern of parallel with London? When London gets hit, do you guys figure you're next?
No. When we were hit in 93 and 01, it was big and spectacular, but car bombs, so far, and thank God, have never gone off here. The Muslim community is both larger and more radical in London than in New York. And in New York City, when you take a subway, there are signs and conductors who always say, if you see something, say something. No one can be against that, but it's hard to know exactly how to react, who has the experience. What London shows us is, thank God, that ultimately it's coordinated and shared intelligence gathering, law enforcement that can defeat local terrorists. Instead of when Karl Rove, I remember 4 years ago, came to New York at a Conservative Party dinner. He said after 9/11, the Democrats cared about law enforcement, he said contemptuously, and we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan to go where the terrorists are. Law enforcement shouldn't be belittled.
Yeah, let me go to Michelle on that point. Michelle, it seems to me that today, when you see a package left on a subway or in an airport in a sitting area, it just creates an image in your mind now. That damn thing's going to blow up.
Yeah.
Whereas 10, 20 years ago, we just ignored that. Somebody went to get a coffee, and they left their bag there. Now you see a bag, and you go, wait a minute, that's not supposed to look like that. We're not supposed to see those scenes anymore.
Welcome to the post-9/11 world. Everything is different. When I heard about the London, or the foiled terrorist plots now, I thought about 9/11 again. I thought about the Belston School massacre in Russia a couple years ago. This is the world we live in, unfortunately.
So how do we avoid being offensive to people who may have a Middle Eastern air or look to them without jeopardizing ourselves? This is the tricky question. Apparently in that incident in the Midwest, people saw behavior on an airplane that scared the heck out of them. They acted according to it, and they created an incident. And my judgment would be always risk protecting yourself if you have to make a risk.
I agree with you. You know, it's a close balancing test. I don't want to say that we should be promoting racial profiling, but we've got to be really careful, because what we know is radical, jihadism and radical Islam. It's a significant problem. And you know what? How do you fight people that want to kill us and who aren't scared to die?
Let me ask you, Mark, do you think the mayor of New York has been fair in his use of the code system? Has he exploited these fears for political purposes, or do you think Mike Bloomberg has been sound in his decision-making?
First, I think he's been sound, but it's impossible to second-guess people in law enforcement who have access to intelligence. We don't. There was one well-known incident in New York when Mike Bloomberg was running for re-election in 2005, at a time when he was on the defensive on a certain local issue, and they announced that the FBI had thwarted a plot, and that news dominated, and his opponent then criticized him, implied that he had done it for political reasons. Look, you asked the key question. Ben Franklin, who has not yet been on Hardball, but if he were, he would have said, those who surrender some freedom to assure security obtain neither. And Chris, in our history, from the Alien and Sedition Acts to the incarceration of the Japanese in World War II to McCarthyism, historians have looked back and said that we surrendered freedom unnecessarily. Right after 9/11, 5,000 Muslim men were arrested and detained, and they had to show that they were innocent. 0 of the 5,000 later turned out to be terrorists. So it's a case-by-case judgment, but you can't just lasso entire ethnic communities.
No, but individuals have to make instinctive decisions based upon their own imminent fear. And you're not telling me that you think you shouldn't operate on the basis of instinct, are you?
No, and in fact, when once in the last 3 years, I left a package somewhere, and then people ran after me and said, "Is that yours?" And everybody understood what was happening. That's human impulse.
Yeah.
But let's be careful that law enforcement doesn't go the way of
No, I'm worried about
stopping 5,000 Muslim men. It turns out.
No,
for no
I'm
cause.
following what Michael Chertoff, the head of Homeland Security, advises us to do, which is to be vigilant. If you see somebody doing suspicious activity and you don't report it, you're wrong. If you see people behaving in an unusual fashion that suggests trouble, you're wrong if you don't report that. I think people have to be citizen warriors at this time in our history. They got to use their common sense, but they better damn well use their instincts as well.
By the way,
or
Chris,
else we're good. By the way, it would have been better on 9/11 if those passengers knew what was coming and had pulled their belts off their waists and torn into those guys with the box cutters and killed them all.
Yeah,
that would have been better than what happened, and we know that.
Who can disagree with that? Remember Admiral Poindexter, when he had what was then called a TIPS program, to have postal workers and utility workers report if they saw something suspicious in homes. That then tipped into the Big Brother area, and that was quickly ended because that was seen as being a little too aggressive.
Well, you're more of a civil libertarian than I am. Anyway, thank you, Mark Green, and thank you, Michelle Bernard. Up next, much more on the London terror plot. We're covering the news, reporting it live as it's happening. The cabinet's meeting here in Washington. People are watching. Michael Chertoff, the Homeland Security Secretary, is warning us to be vigilant. You're watching Hardball only on MSNBC.